Beruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Lamed Ches Amud Beis, 4 lines from the top. The Gemara had previously discussed when you have 2 days, Yom Tif and then Shabbos, or Shabbos and then Yom Tif, do we say you can make an Eruv Tchumin for both days on Erev Yom Tif if it would come out to be on Erev Shabbos, for Yom Tif and for Shabbos, or not? And we said the Gemara, it depends on whether you hold that you can make you have two Kedushos, or if it's one Kedusha Achas. According to Rabbi Eliezer, it's 2 Kedushos, and therefore one can, make 2 different Eruvin on Erev Yom Tif, one in one direction and one in the other direction. The first one, for example, for the first day, meaning for Yom Tif, and the second way for the second day, for Shabbos. The Gemara now discusses what is the Psak Halacha in regards to this case of Yom Tif and then Shabbos, or vice versa, where we can say you can make 2 Eruvin or not. Is it Kedusha Achas or is it Shtei Kedusha? It says the Gemara, Omar Rav Halacha Kedalit Zikenim Halolu V'alibud Rabbi Eliezer the Omar Beis Kedushas Hein. The halacha is like the following 4 elderly sages who go like the Shita of Rabbi Eliezer, that we look at as 2 different Kedushos. The Hainu, Yom Tif is one Kedusha, and Shabbos, which is more of a Kedusha, is a separate Kedusha. Says the Gemara, Ve'elu Hein Dalet Zikenim. These are the 4 sages that we had just mentioned. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, Rabbi Shimon Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika, Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Yosi bar Yehuda Stimto. Vikada'amri, there are those that say, Chad Minayhu Rabbi Elazar. One of them was Rabbi Elazar, Umapik Rabbi Yosi bar Yehuda Stimto, and take out from the previous list Rabbi Yosi bar Yehuda Stimto. Ask the Gemara with an inconsistency. We just mentioned now that amongst these 4 sages, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel and Rabbi Yishmael, Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika, asked the Gemara, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, Rabbi Yishmael, Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika, Ipcha Shaminalu, at the very top of the Amud, they were brought in a different brisa as stating that indeed, if one made an Eruv on Erev Yom Tif, then even if it was eaten on the first day, it is still valid for the second day, which implies that they hold that it's Kedusha Achas. And yet over here we're including them in this list as saying they hold like Rabbi Eliezer, Shtei Kedushos. Answers the Gemara, Epuch. You have to turn around their opinion. That indeed they hold that if you did make an Eruv on Erev Yom Tif and you consume that Eruv after the first day, then it will not be valid for the second day because Shtei Kedushos. Ihochi asked the Gemara, then Hainu Rebbe, this is the opinion of Rebbe in the beginning of that brisa. In which case, that's 2 different opinions. We're saying we have Rebbe that holds that way, and then we're stating that these 2 sages also hold that way. So that seems to be inconsistent with the brisa itself, to which the Gemara says, Eima v'chein Omar b'Shimon Gamliel, Rabbi Yishmael Rabbi Yosi ben Broika, Yochanan ben Broika, that indeed that it's Rebbe's opinion, and similarly they also hold the same opinion that it comes out to be Shtei Kedushos. Ask the Gemara, V'lechshav Nami Rebbe, if so, then why don't we include Rebbe in this list? Why do we say only these 4 sages hold like Rabbi Eliezer? Hare, Rebbe is a 5th sage that also ascribes to the Shita that it's 2 Kedushos. Answers the Gemara, Rebbe Tani Lo V'loi Sofer Lo. Rebbe taught this, but he himself does not hold of this Shita. In other words, he was teaching this in the name of Rabbi Eliezer, but he himself does not hold of Shtei Kedushos. Ask the Gemara, Rabban Nami Tani Lo V'loi Tanu Lo V'loi Savri Lo. Then say that the Chachamim themselves, they taught this, but they themselves do not hold this. They taught it in the name of Rabbi Eliezer, just as Rebbe did. But they themselves do not hold like it, just like Rebbe does not hold of it. Answers the Gemara, Rav Gemara Gamir Lo. Rav had a Masorah, tradition from his Rabbeim, that Rebbe does not hold like the Shita of Rabbi Eliezer. He was just quoting him, but the other sages, they would hold like that Shita. Says the Gemara weiter, Kinach nafshei de Rav Huna. When Rav Huna passed away, Ayil Rav Chizda lemirma de Rav Adarav. Rav Chizda entered to then ask a contradiction between one statement that Rav made and another statement that Rav had made. Mi Omar Rav halacha kedalit zkenim valid Rabbi Eliezer damar shtei kedushas hein. Is it so that Rav said that the halacha is like these 4 sages, like the sheet of Rabbi Eliezer, that it's 2 kedushos? V'ho itmar Shabbos v'yontiv Rab Omar nolda bezeh asur bezeh. When it comes to a chicken who lays an egg, so the first day we say then that is going to be a problem of noilad and it's usr. So therefore, if the chicken laid an egg on Shabbos, then it's prohibited on Shabbos. But if it laid an egg on Erev Shabbos, then it's going to be permissible to be used the next day on Shabbos. So here it states that when Shabbos and Yontif are consecutive, so let's say Yontif comes out on Erev Shabbos, and the chicken laid its egg on Erev Shabbos on Yontif, it's going to be prohibited on the next day on Shabbos. Why is that? It must be that Rav holds that it's Kedusha Achas, as if it's going to be the same day. And therefore Rav is contradicting what seems to be himself in the other statement, who said that it's 2 Kedushos. Answers the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Hasam Mishum Hachana. There Rabbi says is because in the case of Noilad, it's an issue of Hachana, of preparation. And that's why Rab says that when it was given, was noilad a egg, then it'll be an issue to then go ahead and use it the next day on Shabbos, because there's an actual preparation of one day to the next, Yontif to Shabbos. The Tanya, for it states, Vayihaya bayom hashishi vehechinu. It states in regards to the man, but it's talking about the concept of preparation of Yom HaShishi, which is a day of Chol, to the next day of Shabbos, or Yom HaShishi, a day of Chol, to the next day of Yom Tif. Chol, says the Brisa, Meichin the Shabbos, V'chol Meichin the Yom Tif. From Friday, from a weekday, we can Meichin to Yom Tif, we can Meichin to Shabbos. Ve'en Yom Tif Meichin the Shabbos, ve'en Shabbos Meichin el Yom Tif. But we cannot prepare from Yom Tif to Shabbos, or from Shabbos to Yom Tif. And this would be a preparation of Yontif to Shabbos. Therefore, the egg is a problem of Hachana. But in the case of the Eruv, the Eruv is not a Hachana, because although he then made an Eruv before Yontif, it was only going to be Chal for the second day at least, when the second day in this case Shabbos, would then be already started. So it would not be a preparation for Yontif to Shabbos. Says the Gemara, Omar le Abai asks, Elohodis nan ketzad hu oise. But this that it states, he's going to ask on this, that it states, how does he do it? How does he do the Erev? In other words, he wants to say that there's a problem with Hachana here as well. Molichoi barishoin umachshich alov v'noitla ubaloi. He sends the shaliach to then take the food for the Eruv, to be kind of shvisa in a certain makom. Then that shliach waits until nightfall. After chashecha, he takes with him the food because he wants to protect the food so that it's going to be valid for the second day's Eruv. Basheni, the next day, we're talking about an Erev Shabbos now. Machshich alov v'oichloi ubaloi. Then he waits, he goes to the same place, the shliach goes to the same place where he originally was the day before, when he was kohen shvisa on Erev Yom Tif. And now on Erev Shabbos, he goes to that place with that Eruv, and then he waits until nightfall, and then he eats that Eruv, because you cannot carry it on Shabbos. He eats it on Shabbos. And therefore, he was kohen shvisa now for the second day. So, frekt Abaye, mechi miyantiv l'Shabbos. He's preparing from Yontif to Shabbos, but we already had said the answer, the reason why this is not considered to be a hechana. In other words, the Gemara is asking, why is it that the egg is osir? You're telling me the egg is osir because it's a problem of hachana miyantiv l'Shabbos. So too over here, when it comes to the Eruv, you're also preparing from Yontif to Shabbos, because that Eruv, that food that the shliach went back with on Erev Shabbos, that he's taking to then make a make an Eruv for the second day, namely for Shabbos. So he's preparing for Yontif to Shabbos. Omar Rabbi says, no, there's a difference. Misavris soif hayoim koine Eruv. Do you think that at the end of the day, referring to the end of Friday, that he's going to be koine shvisa for Shabbos? Tchilas hayoim koine Eruv v'Shabbos mechin la'atzma. It's the beginning of the next day, naming the name of the day of Shabbos, Friday night, that's going to actually acquire the Eruv. And therefore, it's not going to be a hachana from Yontif to Shabbos by the Eruv. Masha'en came when it comes to the egg was a hachana from Yontif to Shabbos. Elameyata yarva belagin. Ask the Gemara based on what we saw before, that there's a mission that states when you have a wooden kli that has wine inside of it, and this wooden kli is tamei, and we were toivel the wooden kli, but it has to wait, it's a tvul yom, it has to wait until Herav Shemesh, until nightfall, to become tohor. It has wine in it. The person who owns that wants to declare this wine that is inside, which is meiser, he wants to make a declaration that there should be truma, meiser, that would come out from this wine after nightfall. So it states that that's going to be valid. However, if this was done on the Erev Yontif, and he wants to state that this should be valid for his Eruv, we say it's not valid. Why not? If indeed the Eruv is niknes only after, meaning only on Shabbos, then that wine would be no longer tevel, be valid. And therefore, it will then be good for an Eruv. So why does it state in that Mishnah that you cannot go ahead and use this for your Eruv? It's not a valid Eruv. Answers Gemara, you need to have a Suda mi ba'odyom, meaning from already on Erev Shabbos. And therefore, since it was tevel then, and it cannot be used for a Suda, therefore it's not going to be a valid Eruv. Ella asked the Gemara, that which it states in the Mishnah. Rabbi Eliezer Omer Yomtiv has samuch l'Shabbos, bein milfaneh bein mila'achareh. That's our Mishnah. When you have Yontif that comes, let's say, before Shabbos, it could be also vice versa. But in the case where Yontif becomes before Shabbos, Ma'arev Adam Shnei Eruvin, a person should then can make two Eruvin on that Erev Yontif on Thursday afternoon, one for Yontif and one for Shabbos. Like I asked the Gemara, but how can he do this? You need to have a Suda that is going to be valid miba'od yom, and you don't have it. Misavris the monach lebesoif alpayim amo lekan. So alpayim amo lekan. Aren't we talking about a case where he goes to the east of his city limits? He's at his city limits now, and he goes to the east, putting down one eruv to the east, 2,000 amos, and then he puts down another eruv 2,000 amos to the west, and then he declares that on Erev Yontif, that these two Eruvim were going to be Chal, one for the first day, namely Yontif, and one for the second day, namely Shabbos. Ask the Gemara, but if you're going to then say that he goes 2,000 amos to the east, then that precludes him to get to the second Eruv, and therefore is not going to be an Eruv that is going to be Suda Ru'ya Mi Ba'od Yom. Answers the Gemara, Loi, Demonach Le B'Soif Elef Amo. No, we're talking about when he put the Eruv from his city limits, he went 1,000 amos to the east, and then he went 1,000 amos to the left, to the west, and therefore, when he then made the Eruv 1,000 amos to the east, so then he has 2,000 in all directions, he can get back to then the 1,000 amos of the west, and therefore it would be a Suda that would be Ru'uya Mi Ba'od Yom. Ask the Gemara, Elohoda, Rav Yehuda, this that Rav Yehuda stated, Eruv beraglov yom rishon ma'arev ragli yom sheni. A person made an Eruv with his presence for the first day, then he will still have to then go back and make an Eruv with his presence the second day. Eruv bepas b'yom rishon ma'arev bepas yom sheni. If he made Eruv with bread, with pas, the first day, then he would have to make Eruv pas for the second day. Ask the Gemara, if so, since the second day is Shabbos and the first day is Yontif, he's preparing from Yontif to Shabbos. Who said that he's saying anything when he goes back and he goes ahead and places that bread in that place? The Ozav V'Shosik V'Yosif. He goes and he is silent. Kiman, who is this like? In other words, even if he goes and he makes his own presence, he goes back to then Ma'arev Beraglov, he's not stating anything. And therefore, it's not going to be an issue of being Koresh Shem and making a Hachana. Ask the Gemara, Kiman, who is this like? That says that you can make a Koine Shvisa even without making a declaration. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. The Omar Chefze Hefker Koinin Shvisa. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri states that when it comes to somebody who wants to be Koine Shvisa, even if he himself did not do an act of awareness, that means he was sleeping, that person still will be Koine Shvisa and he will have 2,000 amos in all directions. Whereas the Chachamim argue and say, no, he only has Daled amos, since he was not awake and cognizant of being Koine Shvisa, it doesn't become Chal. Similarly, when it comes to an object also can only go within 2,000 amos, also has Techum. So if an object which is Hefker doesn't have an owner declaring it to have a Mokum Shvisa, so here Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri states that even a Chefetz that is Hefker does also acquire a Alpayim Amo, 2,000 Amo in all direction. So that's what it says over here. Even without declaring so. So the Gemara says, no, you don't have to limit it just to this shita. Afilu teimo rabbanon. Even if you want to say the rabbanon, because ad kan lo pligi rabbanon ale de Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri ele biyoshen de lo motzi omar. When a person was sleeping, that's where the machlekes is. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says, nonetheless, he's koine alpaim am in all directions. Whereas the Chacham say no, because he was sleeping, and therefore he wasn't koine anything. He can only walk within Daled amos and not more. Carrying. Aval ben Nior, the Iboy lemeimer motzi omar, Afagadole omar, Kimanda omar domi. But the Rabban would say, if he is awake, even if he actually does not make a declaration, but he has the ability, the yecholis to, and he is silent, that self will be valid. So too over here. And therefore you can say even the Chacham would agree that indeed this is a case where he would be kind of the Shvisa. If indeed Rabbah heard the following brisa, he would not maintain his opinion and say that a person is going to be able to then he's going to then do only a hachana if he actually made a declaration. But without a declaration, it's not considered to be a hachana. The Brisa seems to say otherwise. The Tanya, lo yahalech adam l'soif sadeyu leida ma hitzricha. The Brisa states a person shall not travel, shall not walk to the end of his field to determine what is necessary to be done in that field, so that miyad after Shabbos you'll then metapel with the field. Because it'll be problem of hachana. Kayotze boy. Similarly, here on top of Lamed Tes Amar Aleph, lo yitayel odom al Pesach Medina, kadesh yikanis lemerchat miyad. A person should not walk to the entranceway of the province, so that he'll then be able to enter the bathhouse after Shabbos or after Yontif, which is going to be prohibited on Shabbos or Yontif. So he'll only be there doing that because it'll be a hachana for the bathhouse for them bathing after Shabbos or Yontif. Miyad. So if he heard this, then Hava Hoderbei, then Rabbi would have been choizer and say that would also be a problem of hachana even without declaring the shame. Velohi. However, this is not so, says the Gemara, because Shmiya Lei Veloi Hoderbei. He heard this brisa and still he was not choizer boy. Why? Because there's a chiluk between what the brisa is saying is a problem of hachana, even when he is silent, by just traveling to the end of the Medina where the bathhouse is located, or by the end of the field to see what's going on with the field. There's an issue of hachana, but over here there's not. Why? For the following distinction. Because hasa muchacha milsa, there it's obvious to the onlooker that he's doing so as a preparation for after Shabbos or after Yom Tif, which is prohibited. But over here in regards to Eruv Techumin, lav muchacha milsahi, it's not apparent to somebody who's looking on that he's doing so because of Eruv. If it's a Talmid Chacham, then we say that he's involved with his learning, and therefore he's walking on the outskirts of the city, but it's not because of a purpose of then setting up the tchum. V'iyam ha'oretz hu, and if somebody who's not a learned person, Amrinim, we say chamra irkasle. He then is looking after his donkey. He wants to then go ahead and bring his donkey back. Not because there's an isser, there's no isser to then bring back their donkey, right? But he wants to then find his donkey. So therefore, that's why he's there. He's not involved in then trying to set up a tchum and therefore doing an isser of hachana. So therefore, there's a clear distinction. Then when it comes to the cases where he's not going to then mention anything Baal Peh, in the case of then being a tile basodeh, there, by looking at the field and determining if there's something wrong with it, there, even without mentioning anything, that silence still is a problem of hachana. Whereas Techumin, if he remains silent, it's not a problem. It's only if he makes a declaration, then that Kriya Shem, that itself is going to be therefore a hachana and a problem to be meichin from Yontif to Shabbos.